freedom and despair are born together. They happen at the same moment in the same place of our existence, not just once, but constantly. And therefore, of course, hope as well. Heaven, hell, yes, no, hope, despair, freedom. It's all of a fabric. Okay? It's the fabric of our humanity. One of the greatest interpreters, one of the greatest doctors, that's what he was, a medical man, of human freedom in the 20th century is Viktor Frankl. Frankl's vision of the human condition was born from his own personal suffering and the suffering he witnessed in the Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. He himself was a Jew, an Austrian psychiatrist whose circumstances in the camp gave him an insight that is rare that human beings can sustain, except in the most extreme circumstances. He talks about the way in which freedom must be born at that point in which human beings face the choice between hope and despair. It was important when people began to lose their grip, when they felt they couldn't go on, when they were ready to give up. It was important to find a purpose for them to focus on, even if it seemed infinitely remote and all but impossible. You needed something to live for, a meaning, a purpose, a goal. But when, in some cases, Frankl or his companions tried to address someone who was ready to give up and help them identify that purpose, they met resistance, the resistance of near despair. In those cases, he says, the typical reply with which such a man rejected all encouraging arguments was, "I have nothing to expect from life anymore." What sort of answer can one give to that? Frankl goes on, what was really needed was a fundamental change in our attitude toward life. We had to learn ourselves, and furthermore, we had to help the despairing men realize for themselves that it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who are being questioned by life, daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and right conduct. Life ultimately means taking responsibility to find solutions to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. The entire Divine Comedy is based as a premise, kind of as a starting point or assumption, that freedom is the most crucial aspect of what it means to be human, more so even than intellect. And in that way, Dante anticipates the cultural evolution of several hundred years that are going to follow and makes himself very contemporary with us. But at the same time, it is an article of faith for Dante, just as it is an article of faith for the existentialist movement in the 20th century in Europe. So Dante, and speaking personally for a moment, myself in this case, are committed to acting as if freedom was what was most final, most basic, most fundamental in what we are as human beings. Frankl treats it in the same way, and I think that in the quotation I'm about to read, he makes that finality of freedom very clear. We who lived in the concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Notice how close to Dante in the Commedia Frankl comes in that quotation. First of all, the image he uses for this last, final, irrevocable human freedom is the capacity that we always have to choose our own way, to choose for ourselves what meaning we will attribute to the circumstances in which we find ourselves, even if those circumstances involve the all but complete loss of our liberty of choice. We're still free to decide whether in that situation, the situation in which Frankl and his compatriots found themselves in the concentration camp, we're free to decide whether that situation is heaven or hell. The freedom left with them to determine not simply their own isolated identity, but to determine the identity of reality as a whole. This is what I think is most unique in the way in which Dante presents the concept of human freedom in the Divine Comedy. By laying it out as he does, as a journey through the afterlife, through the realms of Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, he is effectively setting the stage in such a way as to act out a drama which has an ultimate finality to it. It's all-inclusive. The portrayal of human freedom that Dante gives us in his poem is a portrayal in which human freedom is so fundamentally real that it makes a difference for all time and across the sweep of cosmic reality, everywhere, always. It's as if all time and all space were purely relative to the speed of freedom, in such a way that the choices that we make a difference for all time and for all place, for everyone, including God. Not even God has the power to negate the identity that a human soul chooses for itself. That makes the freedom of that soul a kind of absolute. That conviction about the significance of human freedom, even acknowledging all its limitations, is extraordinary.